President Trump has signed an executive order imposing new tariffs on dozens of countries, and a judge is blocking the White House from ending temporary protected status for people from Honduras, Nicaragua, and Nepal. Good morning. I'm Windsor Johnston from NPR News. And here are today's top stories. The first wave of President Trump's new tariffs takes effect today, targeting imports from Canada, a day after he signed an executive order imposing new duties on nearly 70 countries. Most others begin on August 7th. Mexico is still in negotiations with the administration. NPR's Danielle Kurtzleben reports on what this could mean for trade partners and U.S. consumers.
He's getting what he wants, but it's not clear that what he wants is good for the U.S. economy. As one economist told me yesterday, tariffs are modestly weakening the economy for no good reason. It might not drag us into a recession, but it certainly seems like it might raise prices, slow things down. One other big legal question also looms over all of this. A federal court ruled earlier this year that many of these tariffs are illegal. The administration appealed. And so an appeals court heard the case this week. So these tariffs may be in jeopardy depending on how that ruling goes.
That's NPR's Danielle Kurtzleben reporting. A federal judge in San Francisco is blocking the White House from ending temporary protected status for people from Honduras, Nicaragua, and Nepal. NPR's Sergio Martinez Beltran reports.
Federal Judge Trina Thompson's decision postpones determinations until November, when a hearing to discuss the merits will take place. Her ruling affects about 60,000 Honduran, Nicaraguan, and Nepalese immigrants whose temporary protected status was set to expire beginning August 5th. Most of them have been living in the U.S. for more than 20 years. In her ruling, Thompson chided the actions of the Trump administration, saying the migrants wanted the freedom to live fearlessly and the American dream, but she added, quote, "Instead, they are told to atone for their race, live because of their names, and purify their blood." The court disagrees. The Department of Homeland Security did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Sergio Martinez Beltran, NPR News.
President Trump's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, and U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, are in Gaza today. They're visiting a U.S. and Israeli-backed food distribution site as international outrage grows over reports of starvation there. NPR's Eleanor Beardsley reports Israel denies the claims, calling them exaggerated.
The government continues to deny their starvation, calling it an international propaganda campaign against Israel. And the Israeli population, the majority, doesn't really think there's real famine either. People still talk about Hamas stealing the aid. I spoke with columnist Gideon Levy at Haaretz newspaper yesterday. He told me Haaretz is the only media outlet in Israel reporting on the starvation and what's really going on.
That's NPR's Eleanor Beardsley reporting. Witkoff is also expected to travel to Russia in the coming days as President Trump turns up the pressure on Moscow to end the war in Ukraine. President Trump is renewing his push to lower prescription drug prices, aiming to match what other countries pay. NPR's Sydney Lupkin reports the White House has sent letters to 17 drug companies telling them to lower prices or else.
In May, President Trump signed an executive order to put pressure on drug companies to match the lower prices paid in other developed countries. If the drug companies don't do it voluntarily, he said he would take steps to ensure prices came down anyway. Now, he says companies' attempts to fix the problem with proposed policy changes, for example, aren't good enough. That's according to the letters Trump is sending drug makers, including Eli Lilly, Novo Nordisk, and Pfizer. The companies have 60 days to lower prices across their portfolios. If they don't, the Trump administration says it will deploy every tool in its arsenal. Sydney Lupkin, NPR News.
Federal authorities are investigating why an American Airlines plane and an Army helicopter collided in midair in Washington, D.C. earlier this year. NPR's Joe Hernandez reports the National Transportation Safety Board's 3-day hearing on the deadly accident is scheduled to wrap up today.
So far, the NTSB has focused on issues with the helicopter's altimeter, Army training policies, and safety concerns raised by staff at the Federal Aviation Administration that went unaddressed. Tim Lilly, whose son Samuel was the first officer on the jet, says he thinks it wasn't a single decision that night that caused the accident.
But it was a culture that had accepted unsafe acts as normal.
All 67 people on the jet and the helicopter were killed in the crash. The NTSB is scheduled to hear testimony today on collision avoidance technology as well as safety data and management systems. Joe Hernandez, NPR News, Washington.
Two massive wildfires are burning across the western United States, including one on the north rim of the Grand Canyon. That blaze has become so intense that it's creating its own weather system. The fire has destroyed the historic Grand Canyon Lodge and is only about 9% contained. In Utah, a wildfire burning near the city of Monroe has scorched 75 square miles. Together, the fires are sending up huge plumes of smoke and triggering dangerous weather conditions. Most adults in the United States say they're not planning to get another shot for COVID-19 this fall, and many say they're confused about new federal vaccine policies. NPR's Rob Stein reports that's according to a new poll from the health research group KFF.
KFF surveyed more than 1,200 U.S. adults in July. 59% said they do not expect to get a COVID vaccine this fall. Older adults and Democrats were most likely to say they want another shot. Most Republicans say they don't. Many parents also say they're confused about whether the vaccines are still recommended for children. The Trump administration has narrowed who's eligible for the shots to people age 65 and older and younger people with other health problems. So federal health officials now say parents should talk to their doctors before vaccinating their kids. Rob Stein, NPR News.
New data from the CDC show vaccination rates among children in kindergarten dropped again during the last school year. NPR's Maria Godoy reports there's been an increase in the percentage of kids receiving exemptions from required vaccines.
During the 2024-2025 school year, vaccination rates among kindergartners decreased for all reported vaccines compared to the prior year. Nationwide, the percentage of kindergartners vaccinated against measles, mumps, and rubella fell to 92.5%. That's below the 95% vaccination rate considered necessary to protect communities against measles outbreaks. The CDC says coverage against measles among kindergartners declined in more than half of U.S. states. That slide occurred even as the U.S. experiences the highest number of measles cases in more than 30 years. Meanwhile, the number of kindergartners with exemptions from one or more required vaccines rose in 36 states, plus the District of Columbia. Maria Godoy, NPR News.
Residents in Texas Hill Country are demanding answers after last month's deadly flooding killed more than 130 people. In Kerrville, one of the hardest-hit areas, people turned out to speak before a special committee of the Texas legislature on Thursday. Blaise Gainey from member station KUT reports nearly a month after the storm, some people are still displaced, and many say the response fell short.
Walking around, you can pick up on some conversations. There are people who are very frustrated and unhappy with how things were handled. Some of them still displaced to this day. Mind you, this happened on July 4th. But a lot of people here lined up ahead of the meeting starting just to tell lawmakers what they experienced.
That's Blaise Gainey from member station KUT reporting. This is NPR News in Washington.